Good evening. Welcome to the April 23rd, 2026 meeting of the Infrastructure Oversight Board. We'll have a period of public comments. Members of the public can speak for a total of 3 minutes, and you can participate either in person or via telephone by calling 818-238-3335. We'll begin with a flag salute. May we do the roll call?
Armin Abazian.
Present.
Maria Coronados, currently absent. Marcus Davis.
Present.
Dwayne Gilmore.
Present.
Colin Hoffmeister.
Present.
Lori Stearns is currently absent, and Shane Weber is also currently absent.
Thank you. Do we have any announcements?
No announcements, Chair.
Thank you. Any public comments?
No public comments at this time.
All right. The next order of the business is board members' response to public comments, which we don't have. Going to item F, consent calendar. Item 1, approval of the minutes of the Infrastructure Oversight Board meeting held on March 26, 2026. The recommendation is to approve the minutes of the meeting held by the IOB on March 26, 2026. Do we have a motion? Anyone?
I motion.
Any second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Marcus Davis.
Present.
Dwayne Gilmore.
Yes.
Colin Hoffmeister.
Yes.
Armin Abazian.
Yes.
Motion passes with 4 yeses and 3 absent.
Thank you. Item G, reports to the board.
Good evening, Damien Skinner, Public Works Director. I'm very pleased to bring back the fiscal year 26-27 CIP. You may recall in our last meeting, we brought forward new projects and projects that required more Measure P funding. At that time, there was a desire to see the continuing projects that are currently in development that do not require funding. So we have done just that. LaFawn, our city engineer, will be presenting that. We're also joined by Marissa Garcia, our Parks and Recreation Director, and Jennifer Becker, our Finance Director. So with that, I'll hand it over to LaFawn.
Thank you, Damien. I'm LaFawn Xu, City Engineer. Matt, can you start a slide? Do I do it? So I'm gonna provide a update on all the CIP projects for Public Works, and then I hand it over to our Parks and Rec Director, Marissa Garcia, for an update on all the Parks and Rec projects. So this update will including all both the continual projects that is in the this meeting's agenda packet, as well as from the last meeting on the ongoing, which was requesting for funding. So I'm going to break it down in terms of stages. So as you see, it's going to be more of production pipeline. That's the way I'm going to divide them into stages. Start with the completed project first, and then in reverse order in terms of the actual lateral progression of a project. First, let me start with the completed projects for during this fiscal year, which is 25-26. And in August of 2025, we've completed the fighter jet rehab project, which is mainly a refresh of all the paint and minor mechanical repair. So as you can see, it makes a huge difference in terms of appearance. And one of the more challenging thing that we run into is because of this still owned by the Air Force. It was a donation for us to put it on exhibit, but it's not the city's property. So anything we do, we have to get the Air Force's approval, as well as any kind of restoration. We have to keep it to its original condition. So a lot of the work is just finding original parts for the minor mechanical repair, and we actually were able to locate it from a private, party who correct this kind of things, and we are very grateful that we are able to find all the parts. And this was completed in August 2025. And of course, the City Hall fountain was completed in August 2025 as well. And as you can see here, after years of the fountain was turned off, and we turned it on last August, and it was beautiful. And we complete the Providential Shore project in February this year. And the most challenging thing about this project is we have to go through underneath the railroad and Caltrans. And it's really the railroad that's really causing a lot of regulatory delays, because we have to get both the railroad approval and really the railroad, the owner and the operator, the metro link, and and a lot of it has to do with the shoring as well. So as you can see, it involves a micro tunneling. So you need a receiving pit and as well as a boring pit. And you can see in the picture on the left, the pipe you see is actually the steel casing, and the actual sewer pipe is the one you place inside the casing. So the steel casing provides protection for the sewer pipe inside. And then there's a lot of, on the right-hand side, you can see some of the pile shoring that's in place around the railroad, as well as the freeway. And last, I think January 2025, we have a really severe windstorm. And that caused a lot of damage to the Starlight Bowl, and the city has to relocate the performance elsewhere, and we are racing to repair it. And the project actually has two different projects. One, we need to do a structural repair, and then we can do the actual roofing repair, and both are completed just earlier this month. And you can see these pictures on the left-hand side, it's when the windstorm was just a couple days after the windstorm. You can see it's pretty much, rip off everything. And after we done on the right-hand side, it's where we have done both the structural repair not just repairing it, but to enhance the integrity to guard against the future windstorm, and then repair the roof. So we are very happy to report that the repair is done, and we are really, the city is racing to reopen it for the next season. And then, of course, just outside of this conference room, you can see this building security upgrade project that's done, and we're in the processing of putting everything into operation. Currently, there's still some procedure we need to figure out, but we should be put it into use in a couple weeks. And we also, this month, we completed our big street and sidewalk projects. And this one is really mostly on the north side of the city. And we did 16 center miles of paving. And this is some of the before and after pictures. This is Bel Air and Cambridge, Lamer and Monterey Avenue. And this is only some of it because there's so many streets. And this I just picked, a few. Vinola and Keystone, Roger Place. And we also strike the bi-lane. We coordinate with CDD Transportation and work things out ahead of time. So while we're doing the paving, we also implemented the bi-lane on this. And more pictures. And this is Scott and Stanford. Actually, we have residents that's so happy about the paving. They end up give a gift card to our project manager, and our project manager cannot accept it personally, so we put it into our department party fund. That's the. I think that's a very nice gesture from the residents, but also show the appreciation of our work. And of course, we also start on the alley, because at this point we are so aggressive with our street, and most of our streets really been bring up to the standard. But the next focus in the future will be alley. So in this project, we've done 15 alley, and as a reminder, the last project we did 10. And the one before that, it was 5. And before that, there was no alley. So, we'll be systematically focusing on more alleys in the future. And besides paving, we also did almost 40,000 square foot of a concrete work. Which include both the curb ramp, alley approaches, sidewalk, as well as curb and gutter. And we did almost 2,000 linear feet of curve. And this is some of the construction pictures while they're doing the concrete. And this is some of the before and after. And in this case here, it shows the cross gutter. And now, we have a lot of projects that are under construction that will be due for completion within a couple months. This includes the fire station kitchen, which we should be done by early June. That's and this is in downtown Burbank. We are doing the repair on the Orange Grove parking structure, one of the city's most important parking structure. Mostly it's a concrete repair job, and we'll have some coating as well as some refresh pay. You'll see, in a month, probably a month, and a little over a month, you're going to see a big difference in this parking structure for those who visit downtown often. And then we all have our more regulatory project that we have to do. And this is the landfill size lowlighter project to expand the landfill area. And this is the lighter consisted of actually some multi-layers. You have your operational layer, you have your gravel layer, and then you have the membranes, and then you have your clay layer and other less permeable layer to form the whole lighter system. So this is also scheduled to be complete by June this year. And this is the city's first equestrian crossing. We're gonna install a push button as well as a crossing at May and M intersection to connect the horse trail. And currently we are in the process of ordering and securing equipments. And once we have the equipments in hand, we should be start construction this summer and have it complete by September. And also just last week, we started the construction on the EOC in City Hall. I'm happy to report the demo was more or less done within a couple of days, and we are progressing nicely, and we should be able to get the project completed in June this year as well. And also, we'll have our roofing project currently underway. We are in the submittal and material process. And this is including 4 buildings in the ISA Park, which is the Jocelyn Center, the Olive Recreation Center, Pottery Building, and the Creative Art Building, and then also the Animal Shelter and the Water Reclamation Plan. So there's a lot of scheduling needs to be worked out, but we are shooting to complete this project by early next year. And then this is the Old Boys and Girls Club, which will be the Home Again LA headquarters. So that they just had a groundbreaking in February this year, and the project scheduled to be complete February next year. So this is showing some of the demo pictures, and we are in the process of reconstructing the place. And we also have a lot of projects that's ready to be awarded by council. What you see here is all of them currently scheduled in June council meeting. We have the police forensic area projects, which is their lab, their crime lab. We look to upgrade it, and then we'll also, the same thing, we're going to do the upgrade the jail door system, as well as we'll have the foil park lights replacement and enhancement. And then we have our vehicle lift equipment replacement, which is going to last multiple years due to funding. We have one is, and also because the limitation in operation, we have to keep everything working while we replacing the lift equipments in the public works yard. And we'll have our gross park seismic retrofit and remodel. We are shooting for a September, we're shooting for a September construction. Hopefully we'll have the project awarded in June, and then have a construction start in September, and have the project completed before the next season in 2027. And also we have a lot of projects that's pretty much finished the design and just lining up to be bid. And so all these projects are currently queued up to bid. And for example, the I-5 arterial phase 3 will be advertising next week. And we are aiming for the bids to be due in June, and then we'll have it scheduling for award for probably in August. And a lot of and we have our first street bike lane ready to go, and that is we're implementing the bike lane on First Street between Verdugo and San Fernando, I believe. And also, the couple of projects that we need to do for environmental compliance reasons. We are replacing some of the underground tanks in a couple of our fire stations with above ground tanks. At the same time, we also need to remove the existing underground tanks. So there's a couple of projects that's ready to be bid out. And same for a couple more roofing projects, the PD and Fire headquarter roof, as well as the recycle center roof. And then we have our exhaust system replacement project ready to go. That's in all our fire stations, as well as at the vehicle repair shop in the public works yard. And moving on we have a lot of projects currently in design. First, we have combined a 2-year worth of street and sidewalk project into one, just to streamline the bidding process. So this is including 2 fiscal year 23-24 and fiscal year 24-25. We combined it into one project and in design and bid, and that's currently in design. And then we also have out of Magnolia Bridge railing. That's Caltrans currently reviewing our 100% design plan, and we are waiting for their approval. And we are working with Metro to get some of the construction funding, and hopefully, the Metro Board is scheduled to approve their next year's funding, and we try to make it on next year's list, and that way we are able to implement the building without using any for construction, without any need for city's funding. And we also have the Palm Avenue patio upgrade, which I just have a meeting today, and we should be expecting to have a deliverable from the architect in a week. And then we'll have put it into, because this is mostly a quick build project, so we will really put it on fast track and try to get it into construction and implement it very quickly. And then we have a few parks bedroom projects that's currently in design. And we also have some of the more longer term projects, like the Chandler Byway that currently we are at about, I would say 40 to 60% design, and that's probably going to take a little bit longer for the design process to be complete, because it involves more technical challenging areas. And there's a couple of signal projects, and as well as some interior space project that's currently in design. And now we get to all the project in planning. And this is where, just because it planning stages, they are all very different, depends on the nature of the project. So for example, the fuel system modernization and the security upgrade, those we probably, once we decide the scope, we can probably put it into implementation very quickly. But others will have a more, a longer timeline. And the library, as we presented in the last couple of meetings, is we have a very defined timeline. Even though we are in the planning process, we'll have the RFQ comes out next month. IFP for design build awarded in fall this year, and we are aiming to break ground summer 2027 and have the project completed, construction completed in 2029. And then on others, our project is just like, for example, the Outlive Bridge replacement, so the sheer logistic of it, it's gonna stretch it out to multiple years. We have to go through, define the scope, environmental approval, we need to secure the funding, and this project can really be realistically be built with some grant funding due to its cost. But there's a lot of funding that's available for bridge, so we'll fight for anything we can get our hands on. And then there's other project, it's gonna require community input, and CDD Transportation is helping to do a lot of those outreach. For example, the Rancho Providencia Neighborhood Protection Plan, they're working on to see what the scope will be best for both, and based on community inputs, as well as their analysis. And then there's other projects that will, probably has multiple, require a lot of inputs from in order to really define the scope. And for example, the homeless shelter, I think the CDD will provide continuous update to council, so I'm not gonna go into details here. But the example I want to use is, for example, the Outlive Verdugo intersection improvement. It's just the sheer technical challenges we are facing, and that is going to take a lot of time to resolve, as well as a lot of public community outreach. So with that, I'm going to hand the presentation to our Parks and Rec Director, Marisa Garcia.
Thank you, LaFawn. Good evening, Marisa Garcia, Parks and Recreation Director. So I will be walking you through similar process as LaFawn did in terms of our completed projects, those in construction, and where we are with the rest of our projects. So there we go. Earlier this year, in February of 26, we completed the backboard replacement project at Mary Alvord Recreation Center. This project, since we started this project, we've changed the name of the facility. So the facility was known as Verdugo Recreation Center, so it might be listed on your sheet as Verdugo Recreation Center, and we've since renamed the facility. So this is to replace the basketball hoops throughout the gym, and with motorized, so we can bring them up and down as needed for programming. Next, so fall of last year, we completed the replacement of the Santa Anita Play Lot Playground. This project was fully funded through utilizing community development block grants and Measure A grant funds. Next, we replaced we installed shade structures over the bleachers at 3 ball fields at Olive Park. So fields 1, 2, and 4 have new shade structures. Ball field 3 had one previously as part of a donation. So this project was completed in December. Next, we modernized the ball field lighting at Schaefer Ball Field, which is located at Foy Park, and that project was also completed in December. Next, this last year, we did extensive improvements. We've been doing improvements at the DeBell Golf Course just systematically. The bulk of the improvements included installing cart paths, so doing that, as well as some replacements of our nets and or adding nets and extending netting throughout the golf course. And projects under construction, we have one. The Isaiah Irrigation Replacement Project is currently underway. We have an anticipated completion date of May 4th. But we know that there's going to be some, punch list items, so we are hopeful to have all of that wrapped up by June of this year. Then moving on to projects that have been awarded and are currently in the process of actually starting. So Valley Park, we are looking at installing shade structures over the bleachers at that ball field. The project has been awarded. We have a PO, and the plans are currently in plan check. That project is expected to begin the latter part of May and be completed by July. Next is Groves Park ball field lighting modernization. So we have 2 ball fields at Groves Park. That project has also been awarded. We have a PO, and for this project, we will be anticipating starting it during a break in our programming. So that project is scheduled to start in August and be completed by October. And next, Groves Park ball field shade structures, so similar to Valley Park. This project has been awarded. We have a PO, and that's in plan check. And the timeline is similar to Valley, that we hope to be completed by July. Projects that are ready to go out to bid, or we're in the process of going out to bid, is the irrigation replacement at DeBell. So this is the second half to make that facility, replace the entire irrigation at that facility. So we hope to be going out to bid in the coming months, and that's approximately $2 million project. And next is Johnny Carson Park shade structure. So this is a unique project that we are, it's a public works construction project, but with an art element. So we're leveraging public art dollars to fund this project. We did do an RFQ in, I believe, April of last year, of 2025, and we have a site-specific selection committee that went through, reviewed all of the essential proposals that were received. That was narrowed down to 3, and we're ready to issue the RFP to then really review and have those contractors and artists. It's a team combination that will be submitting those proposals. That RFP is scheduled to go out next month in May. And next, the Burbank Channel Bikeway Public Art. We will be doing a call for artists, and that should be going out in June, I believe, June or July. This project is also 100% funded through public art dollars. McCambridge Pool replacement. So McCambridge Pool replacement, that project is moving forward currently in the design phase of that. Let me put on my glasses. So currently in design development, we hope to transition to construction document phase in July of this year. And if all goes as planned, we'd be looking at starting construction approximately June of 2027. And that's an 18-month construction timeline. Olive Recreation Center and the theater replacement project is currently in design development phase. We are looking at transitioning to construction document phase again later this summer, and going through that process and internally looking at the funding of the construction of that project. In planning, we have the DeBell Clubhouse Sierra Room expansion. So if you're familiar with DeBell and the Clubhouse, we're looking at potentially expanding that back private room, whether it's enclosing it or just expanding the outdoor patio area. So that's currently in design. Starlight Bowl Amphitheater transformation, that project is a long-term project that we're currently have been doing a lot of community engagement, and again, just moving that project forward. It's again a long-term project, so that's going to be a little bit ways out. Next, we have Bryce Canyon Park Ball Field, and that for those that may recall, they're new. This is over at Bryce Park. We have a ball field, a couple ball fields that are built over a reservoir. So because of the state regulations, we can only use potable water, and we cannot use any sort of chemicals, fertilizers to keep that natural turf green. So what we did is we embarked in an assessment. So we had a consultant do a turf life cycle analysis comparing both the natural turf artificial as well as a triple bottom line assessment that looks at the environmental aspect, the human health and community impacts. So this robust study that was done, we're completing that. We'll be re-engaging the community and sharing that report. And later this year, we'll be taking that to council for council to make a decision whether we should continue on the path of replacing that ball field with artificial turf, or if we keep that as natural turf. So there's pros and cons to both, and certainly happy to share once we have more information. We can certainly bring that back should this board wish to learn more about that. Next, we have McCambridge Park irrigation replacement. So that the irrigation has been designed for McCambridge Park. However, with the, as previously shared, there is a potential of major stormwater capture project at that park. So we are waiting to see how that project moves forward. It doesn't make sense to invest in brand new irrigation at a park that, if a number of years from now, half of it would be torn out. So that's in a holding pattern. Maxim Park irrigation and Foy Park irrigation are currently in design, and we would be looking at seeking funding for one or both of the projects in 27-28. And I believe that concludes our presentation, and I'm sure if you have any questions, we're all happy to answer.
Thank you for presentation. We'll go with questions, comments from board members.
Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate that. I think that the CIP, the CIP program in general looks really great as is, and it's in line with the council and the council's objectives and the city's community as a whole. So, wow, Damien, you guys all, as an entire department, are sure taking on a lot. I appreciate that. It's not easy. The one thing that I was still looking for in the data was one of the critical goals that's shared, I think, between both Public Works and with the IOB is that these projects, not only that these projects are within their scope, which is scope in general is fantastic, but most importantly that they're within budget. And is there a way, I guess my question is there a way that we track how well we're delivering these projects overall, like budgets versus actual or on-time completion?
Thank you for the question. There's a lot of variables when it comes to construction. And, as far as the market for contractors, the timing of when we were able to advertise projects, things of that nature. So, for example, if we come up with a budget for a project 3 years ago, and we go out to bid and construct it 2 years from now, let's say a 5-year gap, that's 5 years of inflation that we have to account for from the original budget to when we go to construction. And sometimes you see that when we come back and we add money to a project, and before we've even gone out to bid, it's because we know that we're looking at yesterday's dollars compared to tomorrow's dollars. But with that, once we true that up, typically we do analyze our engineer's estimate for what we think construction will be. And in general, I think we do a pretty good job of estimating what we think the market will bear as far as construction costs. And I could say a lot of our recent projects completed by engineering has been within budget or below the project budget. And we've been able to reallocate some of those funds for other projects. So that is definitely one way we make sure that we're performing according to plan.
Well, completing the substantial portion of your projects on time and under budget is absolutely fantastic. I'd love to hear that. I'm just wondering, is there a way that you guys track that and that you're able to share that with us as board members so that we're able to take a look at projects in real time, current projects and proposed projects? I too have worked in the construction industry. I understand exactly what it is that you're saying as far as the market forces and supply chain issues and just time with inflation. Like you said, budget that was approved 3 years ago. I don't think anyone in this room would expect that that number to stand today.
Right.
But once a project has been approved, the budget has been reallocated and adjusted, and that project commences. There's a number of projects that are listed here. There were a number of projects that we just went through that were completed. How is it that we're able to see that? How are we able to verify that those projects are in fact under the approved budget?
I think we can come back with a snapshot of our completed projects, and I think we would have to, we could show what we thought it was going to be, what the actual construction dollars were, but then we can also qualify the spending by if there were any change orders, because as you know, as in construction, you don't know what you're going to get into until you start ripping things up, and then you say, oh, this is why we have a 15% contingency, because we didn't expect to see this once we started opening walls, et cetera. So there are a lot of factors that affect whether or not we're within budget, but I think we can bring something back that kind of gives you an overall sense of how we're performing.
I just did want to add, Jennifer Becker, Financial Services Director. We do track CIP budgets, so, each project has its own individual budget within our system, and we look at that quarterly to see whether or not they are under budget, over budget, needing to make adjustments. When a project is over budget, unfortunately with us, each project has a set authority, spending authority. So typically those projects that do end up going over budget often need to return to city council for additional funds for appropriation, so it does become a very public action. So we kind of try to review that internally to make sure that we can get ahead of those things to keep, obviously because we want to stay under budget, because we have a limited amount of funds, but also because we don't actually have the ability to overspend a project without going and asking for more resources. So of course, this is why Public Works does plan that contingency, because we want to make sure that if we go $1 over, we're not then having to delay a project until we can go back to council to get more funding to finish it. But the contingency does become important, but that is something that we review internally, probably on a quarterly basis. But if we wanted to bring back a financial report of CIP projects, and that wouldn't be very difficult to do.
This is Lifan, so I just want to add to it. So in terms of project budget, there's two different stages of when the project budget increase. One is it due to when you first budget for a project, you don't really fully understand the scope of it until it's completely decided. So that's why that's the first increase is when we add the budget to ongoing project. What you see here is part of the process as you're doing the project from planning to design. Now you fully understand how much it takes for the project, and if we need money, that's when we put on the annual budget request that we actually did this much in order to finish the project. And once that is done, now the second stage is now we have done the design. We have a pretty good idea what the project amount is. Now all the projects, that project amount is allocated, within the project is number itself. Then if we do need more money because for whatever unforeseen condition, it actually, we need to go to council. We need to go to council in a public a meeting, to request for it. And so very few of our projects actually, once we finish the design, and we typically, we can come back with an actual report, but I very feel on the engineering side that we actually need to increase the budget after, we have the design done. So hopefully that answers the question.
It explains the process, which I'm very familiar with, and I'm not asking for a comparison of a preliminary number. I'm not asking for a comparison of an RFP number. It's from the final project budget to whatever status that it may be in, whether it is in a planning phase, whether it's in a construction phase, or even if it's a completion phase. Where are the performance metrics in this data? Because I don't see that. It's the only thing I don't see. I see a lot of really, really good things, but I think us as a board are supposed to not only take in all of the great things that you guys are doing, but we're also supposed to say at a very high level, okay, a lot of dollar value here being spent. Is it being spent on the right things? I think the collective answer potentially could be yes. I don't want to speak for anyone. How are we performing in these categories? I don't have that information. And I'm not trying to manage dollars. I'm just saying, on these types of projects, where are we doing well? Where could we be doing better? Where out of all of these projects should myself and my colleagues on this board be looking at, these are things that Public Works does fantastic. Here, Public Works has said, yeah, you know what? There's some projects where we have consistently needed to request more funds. Here's what we're going to do about that. I don't have that information, and so it makes it really difficult for us to have that sort of assessment.
May I add something to your train of thought? I think the same logic applies for schedule as well. How long did we think a project was going to take, and how long did it end up taking? I think those metrics would be helpful, cost and schedule. And obviously, the triumvirate of scope, schedule, and budget applies here. Once you finish your design, you understand what the scope is. Once you finish construction, you know well and truly what your cost is, but I think there's got to be some exercise that the board is able to look at where we're able to say, these are the initial estimates and this is how it ended up and this is why. I agree, we don't have that so far.
I think we can certainly work with finance to figure out how we, present those metrics to the board in the future. So,
I mean, we can certainly help with the dollars. The scheduling probably is more on Public Works end, but I do agree that those things are connected. And in projects that, just like Mr. Skinner talked about, in projects that where the schedule is delayed is where we sometimes will see the costs increase, right? Because of course, the longer you wait, the more you have to deal with inflation. So I think some of it is just a capacity issue at the time. And not just within Public Works, right? Within finance, procurement is within my department, and there's only so many projects you can bid out at a time. So it's all along the chain from, design and development through procurement, through construction. There's seasonal delays, there's all sorts of things. So depending on what we really want to look at, each project kind of has a life of its own. Certainly, we can look at things from a budgetary perspective, but they're all kind of tied together, the budget and the schedule and the different aspects of a project.
Yeah, I certainly agree with all of that. And, I think what's kind of missing here is the context on how our projects are delivered. I think, we can certainly, bring forth metrics and how we measure our performance. But as Finance Director Becker is mentioning, there are other variables at play, capacity issues, things like that. And I think once the board understands how the cake is baked, you'll understand the process and why things happen in a certain way. And from that point, we can then talk about how do we want to measure our success when we have these external variables that affect it. And, once we get to that point, we can start showing you things that are actually meaningful to what Public Works can control and cannot control.
Just to add to that, I think that you guys are doing a fantastic job. I just want to have you put on paper how you're doing that. And almost everything that you're saying seems like it's absolutely justifiable. We just don't have the data to see it. And eventually, what this comes down to is one thing, which is that we all have to collectively recommend to the council this budget that's being proposed. And I think some of those metrics, if you guys provide that to us, will make it much easier for us to just to vote yes. So.
May I come up with a suggestion? Since tracking the financial aspects of your data is much easier to report, look into the projects that are completed in the past fiscal year and come back with a report to the board about how much was the contract, how much was the spending over the contract authorized amount, if there are any overspending. And then that will be like some sort of a discussion starting point, I would say, if this is something that board wants to consider. And then further we'll go if there is another consideration or another metrics that board wants to review.
Can I just ask a point of clarification? Because we did just have a presentation where we went
Yes.
through our completed projects. Would taking something like we just did and adding the original budget in comparison, because they did show what was actually spent on each of these
Yes.
items, but maybe including the original budget and then the dollars actually spent on what we just did, would that be a helpful starting point, perhaps?
I think that would be, if there is any other comments from other board members.
Yeah, I think that works great.
I agree.
Well, that's certainly doable, and we'll do that at a future meeting.
And I guess to save you guys a little bit of work, we're not looking for all of them, maybe a representative cross-section of, some projects. And I think I speak on behalf of the board when I say our objective is not to beat you up on projects that, were estimated incorrectly. It's more just to get a representative feeling of the things that we collectively have to look out for on future projects.
Any other questions, comments from our board members? Yes.
Colin Huffmeister. Just looking at the budget, I sometimes get a little bit confused on understanding, like here where it says developmental impact fee, and then we'll see developmental impact fund. So obviously a fund is a fund and a fee is a fee, and oftentimes they're separate, but then sometimes on a spreadsheet, it'll also say fee, fund in the same kind of line items. Where was that? I just had an example.
There is a development impact, there's a development impact fee fund. So maybe in the interest of trying to shorten a name, we may have used different terminology. This is why I always like to we do number our funds obviously here. So Fund 127, the title of it is Development Impact Fees, but it is also a fund. So somebody might have just kind of twisted the word
Okay,
on that.
because sometimes it was specific that it was always fund, but then, on, there was not a page, but under the San Fernando Bike Ride Community Development, it says developmental impact fee, then it says Caltrans grant fund, then grant funding, and those are others. So it's basically one and the same, it's just a different.
Yeah, development impact fees is the name of the fund, and it's called that because that's the source of the revenue for that fund.
Gotcha.
It comes from fees paid by developers, so that's why it's entitled that. But yes, most of the time we like to refer it as a fund.
As a fund,
Yeah.
not so much a fee.
The fee is sort of the source of the revenue, but the fund is the name of the fund. but
Okay, so
they're
as
kind
long
of
as
one
you
and the
guys
same.
understand what it is, that's the important thing.
Well, we have no choice here, yes.
Of course. Thank you.
I just want to echo some of the sentiments. It's plenty of work to be very proud of, so thanks for all your efforts in implementing it. We all love this city, and we're really proud that we have such a great group here delivering in the interests of the city. I did have a question about some of the projects that showed up. I just jotted down a few. The sewer, the traverses, the rail line, the security project that's just outside here, the landfill project, the parking project, the I-5 arterial, the bridge railing. These are all pretty substantial projects, between sort of $500,000 and $11 million, but they've never really shown up on our documents. They haven't shown up on our capital plan anywhere, and I'm not sure why.
Well, I do want to say when this board was formed, that anything that's funded by a utility or an enterprise fund is actually not under the purview of this board. But I think, I don't want to speak for Damien and Leafon, but they may want to have included it to show like the context of everything Public Works has been working on. But things like the landfill project and the sewer project, they fall outside of what we call general city capital improvements.
Okay.
So you wouldn't typically see this. This isn't something that goes to this board for budget approval, because those are paid with ratepayer dollars as part of the sewer fund and the refuse fund.
Got it. Yeah, because the scope of this board is non-enterprise
That's right.
fund. Right.
And I think, that is based on some of the feedbacks on the board, that not just the funding, but also the workload. So this is to show like a full picture of our workload, because it's just not, there's a lot of other funding sources, project that we also have to do. So this is more like the workload, try to answer the workload question.
Okay. So some of the other projects that I mentioned, the security improvements, the parking, I-5 arterial, do those fit under the umbrella of the enterprise fund?
For example, like the I-5, that wouldn't call enterprise, but half of the I-5 Phase 3 is grant funded, and the other half is local return measure R. So, and then on the security project,
Actually, that was, the security project was funded last year, and we added more money this fiscal year. And so that project is going to do things like upgrading our keypads to badge readers. It's also going to do other security improvements like tinted windows, spot mirrors, things like that, more lighting, things that we've looked at. We did a survey with our employees, and there are things that we can do to enhance security around our facility. So that's what that bucket of money is for.
Okay.
And that security project is in this year's budget. I think it's called multi-facility security upgrades.
yeah, it's
I'm
number
sorry.
7
Yeah.
on the ongoing project.
Yeah.
The I-5 project, I think some of that funding dates back several years, and it probably is dollars, Caltrans dollars, that has been carried over for multiple years. So you may not have seen it on a budget because the project has been going on so long that it may have been before this board.
Right, and I just want to clarify, some of the budget, like when we get funding, is when one project was completed. For example, the I-5 project, a lot of those, and then there's leftover money from that, and then we allocated to another project. That's I think, that's why some of the funding source is dating back more than 10 years, because I think some of the money was left over from the I-5 widening.
Okay. So I guess the big question is, should I expect to see these projects on our capital plan or not?
So the source of all of our capital projects is our annual CIP budget, the full budget that we publish on the city's website, and we have physical books as well. That gives you all new, ongoing, and continuing projects, even dollars that are funded in a prior year.
Okay.
You can have every project in there. I think when we're, in terms of the capital plan for next year, what we're doing here is bringing those projects to you that are still ongoing into next year or needing additional appropriations.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
I mean, so should I expect to see it here or not?
When you say here, do you
Oh.
mean?
Yeah, because, well, we have a list of projects here, which is ongoing projects and proposed new projects.
Right, so
And-
those are the projects that are asking for an appropriation, for a budget appropriation. So you wouldn't see something like the I-5 because it's already fully funded. We're not coming to this board requesting an appropriation or an approval of appropriation because it's a project that has already been previously approved.
Got it.
So it wouldn't be in this list. But after this CIP budget is adopted, we do an entire CIP budget, and that includes everything, even the projects that didn't request funding because they're still working through those projects. So
Okay.
it's just, we're not requesting appropriation for those projects tonight.
Got it.
Right, just to add to it, because the IOB members specifically requested for the continual projects to be, presented, so we included the continual project for this meeting's packet. So if you look at the packet, all the continual project, it's in for today's meeting, but we try to streamline it and try to try to make it simple that, but because of, it was specifically requested, we put it in today's meeting's packet.
Okay, okay. So forgive me, I want to repeat back what I heard, so I'm not getting this wrong. In the instance of a project that has already been assigned funding and is underway, we won't expect to see that in the capital plan because the funding has already been awarded to the project. Okay, is that correct?
It's not part of our capital budget for next year.
Got it.
It is part of our capital plan. So as we move through the year, and if Public Works were to do quarterly updates on progress on projects, well, that's an active ongoing project. But in terms of the capital plan for next year, what we're requesting is approval of budget dollars. And so if it's a project is already funded, you're not going to see it on the budget for next year. Does
Okay.
that make sense? It's still an
it does.
active project. It's just we're not requesting funding for that project.
Got it. Got it.
It's already been reviewed and approved in the plan.
Right.
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 May I add to this? IOB's peer review is the Measure P, Fund 534, and allocation of the Fund 534 into certain projects. Now, in order to see the big picture, IOB needs to know what's going on outside of the Fund 534, which is the entire CIP book.
Yes.
But our peer review is not the projects that are funded by other projects. We cannot say, we cannot advise the council for or against any projects that are not funded by Fund Measure P. But for us to advise on Measure P funded projects, we need to know the big picture. This is like a big
Yes.
puzzle in front of us that we are overseeing a little piece of it. But without having the big picture of the puzzle, we don't know where this piece goes. So for us, we need to know the entire list of the projects, but at the same time, our oversight is the Measure P fund.
If I may make a slight adjustment on that, it's not Measure P, it's non-enterprise fund. Is that correct? I don't know who I'm looking at.
I believe how the chair described it is how it's intended to be.
Okay, okay. Maybe our homework is to look at the Muni Code and see.
Yeah, I do
What it
believe
is.
the intention of the board was to advise on non-enterprise projects. That can include other funds besides Measure P, with the understanding that most of those other funds are restricted for certain projects. And we don't have the leeway to spend them on, whatever the board desires. A lot of times they're restricted just for transportation or just for street
Yeah.
improvements, right? And so we have to stay within those guidelines. Our policy as a city has always been to use those restricted funds first. Because Measure P can be used for anything, we want to make sure that we use all the restricted funds so that the Measure P funds are left over for things for which we don't have a source of funding. So that's really where this board is critical. Because those funds can be used for anything, we looked for the board's feedback to make recommendations about the best possible use of those funds. But I do believe our intention here is to bring the entire non-enterprise CIP for your approval.
Right. But I think the logic holds true that it's not under our purview to have an opinion on enterprise fund projects, loosely speaking. It's our responsibility to provide feedback on non-enterprise funded projects. However, I might just be saying what you just said, so forgive me. However, it's our responsibility to make an assessment of the aggregate of capital projects occurring in the city in the context of non-enterprise funded projects. Yeah.
If I could maybe ask a question, I'm like listening and trying to, I'm hoping to maybe get to, it sounds like I'm hearing, and sorry, Damien, just stepping in, that it sounds like it might be the desire of this board to get a status update on all non-enterprise funded projects. Or is that where your question is
Kind
going
of.
to, or that the question was going to?
Yeah, do you mind if I'll go a step back and then I'll jump forward here. Last month we got together, and one of the concerns that I voiced to the group here was that looking at the capital budget last year versus what the capital budget is going forward this year, there's a substantial increase in the amount of funding there. So what is the city's capacity to actually deliver those projects is kind of the thesis of all of this. So the purpose of this meeting is to really kind of take an assessment of all of the projects that are ongoing and are completed, and have an educated point of view based on that as to whether we believe that the budget for the year ahead of us is representative of the work that needs to be done, and what is the city's capacity to deliver those. That's kind of the overarching theme here. However, I think a little bit of a curveball here is we've got non-enterprise funded stuff that's on the capital plan, but then we've got all the enterprise funded stuff. How do we, and it kind of goes back to your point actually, how do you look at the aggregate of it and assess the ability for the city to deliver these things? That's kind of the overall direction.
If I may, I'll just do a quick recap. So last month, we brought the new and continuing projects, basically projects that are brand new, asking for new appropriations, and continuing projects that are existing projects but need additional money. And when we discussed that, we looked at what capacity our project managers have as far as being able to deliver these projects, because we do not want to budget money, then tie up money essentially, and not being able to deliver, what we said we're going to do. So we really took a hard look at our bandwidth of our project managers, and what they currently have going, and decided what we're able to do. So if you may recall, like a lot of the new projects, there were a lot of design kind of projects, things that are kicking off. We just asked for a little bit of money to design what we need to get done. And then what you saw with the more of the continuing projects that needed the additional funding is that now we're moving into the construction phases. And they were previously funded for design, but now we need a lot more money to actually build what we said we're going to design. And that's why you see the jump in funding, but it's not necessarily a jump in the number of projects, but it's just the phase we are in the projects. And that's why you see a lot more money being requested. After we were done with that presentation, there was some concern about our bandwidth, and I believe you brought that up. And there was a desire to see, well, what other projects are you working on that doesn't need additional funding, but still tying up your time? And this is what our city engineer presented today. The entire portfolio of projects that are funded by Measure P, other sources, and even enterprise, to show the entirety of the projects that we have under our purview.
Yeah, I guess to extend on that, Director Skinner, I think one of the things we would have liked to have seen last month is we had X amount in our capital budget last year. At the end of last year, we were able to deliver X plus or X minus because of, and I don't think we have a sense of that at all. And I think it's concerning, especially because the capital plan in the year ahead, and I think even the year ahead of that, increases substantially, orders of magnitude. I think I said like 40% last month. So do we have the ability to catch that demand? And I know what you're saying. We've gone from soft costs to hard costs, so the costs jump up. But we want to make sure that all of the folks that work in Public Works, the procurement people, are all ready to go to process change orders, and away we go, away we go. But if they're feeling the strain under, the early stages of some of these projects, it would be good to get a sense of that so we don't overburden your staff or the city staff at large. That's really kind of where I'm coming from too.
If I may, just in terms of the dollars in this budget, because you're right, this is probably the biggest CIP budget we've proposed since I've been here. But roughly half of the budget is dedicated towards 2 projects.
Right.
And they just happen to be 2 kind of our mega top 5 projects that we're planning to fund in the same year. One is obviously the new Civic Center and Central Library. We've had that $10 million sitting in a holding account waiting to appropriate for the time that we are ready to go out to bid. So that one's been sitting a long time, and we're finally getting our first steps on that. At the same time, we've fully funded the construction of the McCambridge pool. So we don't see a $10 million appropriation in CIP very often at all, and this year we happen to have 2 of them.
Right.
So those 2 projects alone have caused the budget to be considerably higher than the prior year. But in terms of the number of new projects we're taking on for next year, it's actually lower than what we've done in prior years, just because we knew we would need the resources for those 2 projects. So the dollars are bigger, but I don't believe the actual number of projects or the capacity for doing those projects is necessarily impacted. The pool is obviously a park and rec project. Obviously, Public Works has involvement, but it's not specifically just a Public Works project. And then, of course, the library, we have an outside consultant that's doing most of the project management for that. So as of right now, we're in the procurement phase, and it's not a huge workload on Public Works either. So in terms of how we lay out the workload, I don't think the plan is more ambitious than it was last year.
Yep.
It's just that the 2 really big projects are taking up a lot of the dollars.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And to your second point, I think you can tell that we have a good working relationship. So
Yeah.
I think
Sure.
our teams are closely aligned and we're, working in harmony.
Yeah, well, that's relief to hear, and just conceptually, that's to be expected. There's ongoing programmatic things in the city of Burbank, pavement repairs and utility upgrades and so on, which we can, with a degree of confidence, we can map that out for the rest of time. However, it's these big capital projects that pop up along the way that we really need to take a closer look at. However, I mean, just one point to consider. Even though we do have a consultant managing it, from a day-to-day point of view, that doesn't reduce, the amount of time you guys have to spend on it to make sure it's headed in the right direction. It doesn't reduce the amount of time your procurement team needs to, process purchase orders and so on. So there is, let's call it an undercurrent of increased work that happens in this building or the one next door. So I know Assistant Director Xu always reminds me that just because you've got huge projects coming up doesn't necessarily mean it's a one-to-one kind of increase in workforce. However, it's not a zero increase in workforce, and often these big capital projects need to, they deserve to have SMEs paying attention to them, guiding them, facing outwards to the project, facing inwards to the city council, making sure everyone's cool, and that does take time too.
I think just to add to that, it's probably why your project manager, Eric, gets a pat on the back, because he's got one project on his schedule here, and it's a big one. That's why there's a lot of TBDs in items 4 through 8, because right now, it's on paper, I don't know any of these staff other than the ones that are present today. On paper, it looks like you are spread extremely thin. And so if part of that is, part of this process is, well, the time that it takes to procure the ingredients for the analogy you were using on how to bake this cake, for finance to do their part, for you guys to manage it. If part of that is we are doing far better than most municipalities with the resources that we have, then maybe part of that is, as our recommendation to council, there is a side note that says council should look into Public Works funding for their resources and their staff as it needs to be taken a look at, because if there's a bottleneck in any of those processes that are causing delays in some of these projects that have been given your budget approval, but you just don't have the capacity to go from RFQ to RFP to actually assigning it to someone and pulling the trigger. I mean, and you guys have experienced that. We've all experienced that in the construction industry in general. I mean, the price of lumber, post-COVID has started to settle a little bit, but a lot of things haven't. So I think what's important for us is not to get into, again, like I mentioned earlier, every dollar that's being spent every day that's under or over. If we have a snapshot on some of these things that you guys can provide, that's easy for you to provide to us, I'm sure you're doing a great job when it comes to this. Just show it to us, and it makes it a lot easier for us to get to a yes.
I appreciate that comment. Thank you. And just so you understand our environment that we're working under, with me taking the helm 3 or 4 months ago, I know our city manager's office has been very keen in making sure that Public Works has what we need to deliver projects and to be innovative. So there seems to be definitely desire higher up to support us. We're just at a point now as we are quote unquote regrouping and looking at our resources. We'll know better exactly what else we need to deliver projects more timely. But I can tell you this: one of the key positions that we are going to recruit for, starting tomorrow, as a matter of fact, is an assistant city engineer, and we have an assistant director position also that's being recruited for. Both of those positions are going to help with capital plan management and delivery. So we are looking at our resources. That's constantly being analyzed. But your recognition of, there's always a bandwidth limitation, and willing to support that is appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Skinner. Any other questions?
I would just add, we've also expanded our procurement division over the last year to 2 years as well. We were without a purchasing manager for over a year, and now we have one in place since October who's been helping moving some of these projects forward. And we're in recruitment for an additional buyer as well, too. So it's capacity all the way around that helps these move forward. But I chuckle a little bit for Damien, because if this board would have seen the original list of submitted projects versus what we actually got it down to for the budget process, that our fellow city departments have very high expectations of what they would like us to achieve during a given year also. So there is a lot of give and take to get to this list of projects before it starts, and we actually did whittle it down quite a bit, knowing that we had the library and the pool coming up next year, and tried to scale down on other things. But of course, our fellow departments have expectations as well, so we try to meet that middle ground of doing what we need to do to provide service, and also being realistic about what we can accomplish in a given year.
That's a great news you mentioned, because talking to other local agencies, I hear a lot, they say purchasing or procurement is the bottleneck of most of the process, I would say, throughout local agencies.
I will take ownership of that, but also when procurement
sure?
goes wrong, there are, big repercussions for that as well. So it's a double-sided coin.
Yep.
I just want to say kudos to both Public Works and Parks staff, project managers, everybody who delivered all these exciting projects. One of those happy residents are probably my parents, that when the streets behind their house got paved. I had a couple of comments or maybe question. I see a lot of like multiple shade structure projects or irrigation or lighting projects. Have you considered combining them instead of having like every single park in one project, do it as like a multi-year program or some sort of a one-shot contract for multiple projects to get like a better economy of a scale?
Yes, actually, one thing to share in terms of the discussion about resources and efficiencies. For Park and Rec, for most of our projects, we deliver, with the exception of the pool and some of the larger term projects, ball field lighting, shade structures, and playgrounds, we use source well contracts. So we don't physically have to go out to bid and go through those process. We look at what is out there, what other agencies have gone out to bid, and so we take advantage of that. It definitely cuts down time, and that's certainly been very helpful. So with the exception of like irrigation that has to be designed, those that we do go out to bid, but we try to be as efficient as possible and the term like piggyback off of somebody else's contract. We do that quite a bit in Park and Rec, and I know Public Works as well is doing some of that when we can.
I was thinking about those purchasing people. And just one more comment, going through the presentation, talking about the projects, when I searched in the meeting agenda and I saw, I wanted to see, for example, one of the projects, how is it funded? And then I see multiple grants and other sources outside funding. I get excited because I would say we should have always a priority to use other people's money first, then tap into our major piece. And again, kudos to staff doing that.
It's definitely my favorite kind of money.
That's all of the comments I have. If there is no other comments from our fellow board members, I think we should make a motion.
May I? I'm sorry to
go
be that guy. Do we have I'm just looking at last year's capital plan here, and the bottom line for the CIP budget was 32 million. Do we know how much we actually delivered for the previous fiscal year? Is it close to that number?
I think it's on the in the big spreadsheet that we print out, as well as it's on the last month's packet.
Oh, okay.
So it's right now, we're looking at fiscal year 26, 27, the dollar amount currently is at 51. So like I said, we have two really big projects, and that account for probably majority of that increase.
Sure. But for the previous fiscal year,
Was 34,
32?
38?
Oh,
I think the question was how much of was expended of last year's
That's
capital
correct.
budget, not how much did we budget.
correct.
We could bring back a report. When we run a report of capital expenditures, we do every project, not just the ones from last year. So I wouldn't have a number to give you that breaks down just that list of projects.
Okay.
But certainly, and maybe that's something we start just including for this board quarterly, just a capital expenditures each quarter
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
project. That's something we could run for Public Works quite easily.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Do you have a sense, Director Becker? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I don't have a sense,
Okay.
just because when I look at capital, it's citywide, and I would have to break out the different enterprise funds versus non-enterprise funds to get you a number, but that's certainly something we could easily follow up with the board.
Okay,
It's
thank you.
just not in my head at the moment.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you all. So we have to make a motion. What is the motion language we have to put?
We'd be recommending that the IOB receive and review the proposed fiscal year 2026-27 CIP projects and recommend that it be presented to City Council.
Well, all right, it's here. All right, the motion is to recommend that IOB receive and review the fiscal year 26-27 CIP program and recommend it to be presented to the City Council. Do we have a motion?
Yes.
Any second?
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Marcus Davis,
Yes.
Colin Hoffmeister,
Yes.
Dwayne Gilmore,
Yes.
Armin Avazian.
Yes.
Motion passes with 4 yeses and 3 absent.
We are going to item H, introduction of additional agenda items. Well, I think one of the additional items will be the matrix that we discussed in this meeting.
Yes, Chair. We'll bring back a couple of things over the next few meetings. I think I would like to bring the process for how projects are delivered, and I think that'll bring some clarity to to all of this. We also bring back a comparison of what was budgeted and what was spent for our completed projects, and then we can also bring back total expenditures for the last fiscal year out of 534. So I think we have some items for the next 2 meetings. I don't think we're going to cover that in the next meeting, but certainly the next couple.
I don't think all of these items have to be presented in one meeting. So
We can spread it out.
What is this taking to City Council again?
May 19th.
May 19th, okay.
all right, future agenda items will be the same, the new items we discussed. We move to item J, adjournment. The next scheduled meeting is on May 28th, 6 p.m., room 104, CSP. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.